The movie is Drop, which was written by Jillian Jacobs and Chris Roach and directed by Christopher Landon. This thriller film follows Violett, a widowed mother who's going on a first date at an exclusive restaurant at the top of a Chicago high-rise. While on the date with the very charming Henry, her pleasant evening quickly turns into her worst nightmare as she begins to receive messages on her phone threatening to kill her sister and her only son unless she kills her date first. This is an original thriller film that's plot heavily relies on a feature akin to Apple's AirDrop that allows users to send photos directly to another person's phone without leaving a trace. In the movie, they call them digidrops, which is probably to comply with Apple's fair use policy, since the person using them is trying to get Violett to kill her date and threatening the life of her toddler son. And I was actually super surprised to learn that airdrops actually don't leave any history. Like, from a logistical perspective, that aspect of the plot was actually very plausible, so I like that about it. It's kind of scary in and of itself because there's so much potential for misuse. The thing I liked most about this movie was the commitment to trying things out and the intention to make it feel truly original. The filmmakers employed a ton of different novel film techniques that made for a much more interesting visual experience than you typically see in a movie like this. Dutch angles to give the viewer a sense of unease, tracking shots to create more cinematic and impactful moments, dolly zooms to disorient the audience and highlight Violett's horrifying realizations, and even some pretty lighting techniques that showcase Violett's isolation and other emotions. For me, that was what really set this movie apart from your typical popcorn movie thriller. For the most part, outside of that, it was a fairly formulaic and predictable thriller film. It often doesn't make a ton of sense. And look, I know it's a movie, but there are a few things in this one that are just a little bit hard to overlook. The third act is where this is by far the most prevalent. The movie goes from asking audiences to suspend disbelief to asking them to basically just ignore things that don't make any sense. The ending was far less interesting than I thought it would be. It was pretty devoid of any surprises, twists, or turns, so it just kind of ended up being a lot more boring than I thought it would be. And while I give the filmmakers a ton of credit for trying things, not everything worked. There were a few choices they made that I felt took away more from the film than it added. For example, the conversations between Violett and Henry would often be completely isolated audio so that none of the background noise of the restaurant could be heard at all. While I truly appreciate the attempt in trying all sorts of things like this, I personally just didn't love this move. It made some of their conversations feel more awkward, and it kind of took me out of the movie instead of drawing me in further. And what I'm about to say is a very minor spoiler, so if you haven't seen the movie and you want to go in completely blind, go ahead and pause the video here, and you can either fast forward 30 seconds, or you can go ahead and click on the next chapter after the spoiler to resume the video. I thought that Henry was far too perfect of a person. He's maybe the most patient man on earth. He's kind, he's compassionate, and he's so empathetic that he cried after hearing Violett was abused. He's funny, he's charming, he's absurdly handsome and in shape. He immediately rushes over to help someone on the other side of the room when they stumble over. He legitimately has no flaws, and that's fine. They want him to be this idyllic dream of a man, but I thought it would have been far more interesting if it was even a little bit ambiguous as to whether or not he was involved in this plot against Violett and her son. Okay, spoiler over, feel free to resume here, spoiler free. I'll also say I loved the waiter character played by Jeffrey Self. He was so funny throughout and had great comedic delivery and timing. He was easily one of the most interesting parts of the film for me and an absolute standout performance, so hats off to him. Overall, this ended up being kind of exactly what I thought it was going to be. A popcorn thriller movie that has a somewhat obvious plot that isn't groundbreaking, but it's still fun enough. The strength of this film is in the directing, adding a ton of life into the film with the camera work and cinematography. I personally didn't think this was one of the better movies of 2025, but if you're looking for a low-commitment thriller that provides a fun escape, I think this one's worth checking out in theaters. So go watch Drop. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, please share it with a friend, add a comment letting me know what you thought of this movie or what movie you think I should review next, and subscribe to my channel. I put out a movie review each week, so subscribe to stay tuned. Thanks, y'all.